Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is .NET 7 Blazor WebAssembly JWT authentication series. Okay, and this is part 8 of this series, and this video is about implementing refresh token. Now, whenever our JWT access token expires, we can regenerate the JWT access token using the refresh token. Okay. We are going to store the refresh token into the table. For that, I am creating a table like user refresh token because user can log in with multiple devices, right? So user can have multiple refresh tokens. That is why other than user table, I am creating one more uh, table like user refresh token where I can have multiple refresh tokens can be stored per user. Okay, so my table contains columns like ID, token, nothing but our refresh token, and user ID, which user the refresh token belongs to, and the expiration date. Okay, let's execute this script. Okay, and it is successfully executed. If I refresh the table, here is my new refresh token table. Okay, user controller, we have endpoint for login, right? User login. So currently this user login only returning JWT authentication token, right? So now we have to send refresh token along with the JWT access token to the user. Okay. So for that, go to our user services. Okay, here let's create a method that going to return us the token. Okay, refresh token. So I will create a private method. Okay, async the task, and this method going to return the string nothing but the refresh token. Okay, so let's name the method like generate refresh token. Okay, so this is the method going to return as a refresh token. So return string.empty for now. Okay, now let's create entity that represents our user table. So user refresh token table. So go to entities and we have to create a new class. Okay. So let me copy the table name and add a new class in the entities folder. Okay. And let me copy these columns, or else let's close this query and open the table. Okay, let me copy these columns for reference. Okay, so public int id, public string user id, okay, public string token, okay, and date time, expiration date, our refresh token expiration date. Okay, so generally JWT access token is short-lived, right? Like 20 seconds or 30, sorry, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And refresh token can be like days, like 2 days, 3 days, 7 days. Okay. So let me clear these references and register this table in our database context class. Okay. So public db set user refresh token. Okay. User refresh token. Okay. Now let's get back to our user service and here, and this generate reference token, we can have user ID, okay, as input parameter because we want to store when we create the refresh token. Along with that, we want to store the user ID into our user refresh token table. Okay, now what I will do, I will simply use random number generator method to generate a string. Just like if you recall, here we are already generating a random string for hashing, right? Same thing, okay? Copy this line of codes, okay? Just a random string, okay? And here I can name it like bytes of token, okay? And bytes of token, okay? Just I want some 32 characters or bytes of string, okay? And finally, I want to convert that into a base 64 string, okay? Where token equal to convert dot to base 64 dot bytes of token, okay? So finally, here is our refresh token. Now we just need to save it to the DB, okay? So where new refresh token equal to user refresh token, okay, and here are the values. So date time dot now dot add days. I just want my refresh token valid for 3 days, okay, and token, we have token value and user ID. So user ID. Now let's save this user ID, right? Okay, user ID is integer. I created string, change it, okay, and now let's save it to the database. So I can use the db context dot refresh token, user refresh token dot add, and pass our new refresh token object, and finally call save changes async method, okay, and finally return our token value from this method, okay. So this method should be consumed in our login async method in this method, okay. So let's go to JWT token response model, okay, and let me add a new property for our refresh token, okay. So refresh token, okay. Now let's get back to the user service, and here let's call our refresh token, okay, generate refresh token and pass the user ID, okay, UID, and finally to the response object assign the refresh token, okay. That's it. So let's check whether we are able to get refresh token along with access token or not, okay. Okay, in the Swagger page, let's test our endpoint, login endpoint, okay. So let me give the valid credentials so that I can get access token and refresh token. Okay, check now. And I am getting refresh token, okay. And if I go to database and execute this select query, see, I'm able to save a token for user ID 1002, okay. Now, along with the refresh token, sorry, JWT access token, we need to store our refresh token also into the browser local storage, okay. So for that, let's go to our Blazor WebAssembly application. Let me close these files. Okay, and go to UI project and go to our login.razor. So here we are storing our access token, right? Just like that, we need to store our refresh token. First, we need to populate a new property into our JWT token response VM model. Okay, so here just add same property that we are getting from the API. Okay, so public string and make first letter caps. Okay, and now I can store it to the browser local storage. So wait local storage dot set item string. Okay, and give the key name like refresh token, any string you can give, and the second value should be our response token dot refresh token. Okay, now let's check whether we are able to save it to our browser local storage or not. Okay, so let's click on login. Okay, we are successfully logged in. Let's check our browser local storage, and here you can see access token and the refresh token. We are done by providing the refresh token to the Blazor WebAssembly application. Now we need to create new endpoint, nothing but a refresh token endpoint. So on invoking this endpoint, we can regenerate the expired JWT access token and also the refresh token, because we have to use or validate the refresh token only once with the server. Once it is validation is completed, we need to generate a new one. Okay. Now let me create a new DTO for my new endpoint request object. Okay, so let's create a new class. Okay, I will name it like renew token request DTO. Okay, and it will contains parameters like user ID. Okay, and refresh token. Okay, now in iUser service, let's define a method definition. Okay, so for our refresh token endpoint. Okay, so my method I am going to define like full and error message comma JWT, sorry, renew request object. Okay, renew token request, and let's give the method name like renew token SC. Okay, okay, that is our method definition. So let's implement this method in our user service. Okay, let's implement the method. So I think at the bottom there is a method, new method definition. So here we have to write our logic for regenerating the access token and the refresh token. Okay, first thing is we need to validate the refresh token is valid or not. Okay, to do that I will write like logic distinct refresh token. Okay, so my old DB user token. So here I am going to filter the data. Okay, where ID equal to a new token request dot user ID and refresh dot token equal to renew refresh token, and also check the expiration. Okay, so expiration date should be greater than date time dot now. Okay, so if you recall, here we added 3 days, right? We are checking just like it is uh, expired or not. Okay, and finally first or default async. Okay, the refresh token not found in the DB, then we simply return. Okay, return message like invalid refresh token, and the object will be null. Okay, sorry, it should be string. Change the type, tuple type. Okay, all right. If the refresh token is valid, I want to remove it from the database because I am going to create the new one. Okay, because it is already used. So user refresh token dot remove existing token and call save changes session. Okay. Now we have to regenerate both access token and the refresh token, right? So first we need to get the user. So where user equal to dot user dot where user ID equal to new refresh token ID. Okay. Dot first dot default async. Okay. I'm getting the user information. So if we get the user information, we know how to create the JWT access token. So just go to our login async method. Okay. Here we are going to get these two methods from the login, and we are going to add it here. Okay. And also the response model. Okay. Let me copy this entire thing. And that's it. We are regenerating our new access token and refresh token. And here let me use simply empty. Okay, and my mistake here, it is not renew request type, it should be our JWT token type. Renew request type is only our input payload, not the output payload. Okay, sorry for that. Okay. So JWT token response. Okay, let's copy this and update in our method definition as well. Okay, that's it. We are done with our logic. Okay, now let's add our new endpoint in the user controller. Okay, let's add our new endpoint. Okay, renew tokens async. Okay, that is my action method name, and it should be also a HTTP post method. Okay, and I will give endpoint name like renew token. Okay, and it must contains our payload type renew token request DTO renew request. Okay, so where result equal to await user service renew token and pass the payload. Okay. If string dot is null or empty, result dot error message. If it contains some error message, then we simply return bad request. Okay. Else tokens are generated good, so okay, and we are going to return the response. So result dot JWT token response. Okay. So that's it. We are done with our endpoint, refresh token endpoint. Now we have to utilize it on our client side. Okay. So to utilize it, first our JWT token must be expired, right? So what I will do for testing, go to login async method and go to generate JWT token method. Okay. So here let's give expiration to 1 minute. Okay. Let's run our API project. Okay, let's get back to our application. Let me remove the existing token and refresh token. Okay, delete, delete. Okay, now reload the page. We are on login page and let me log in again. Okay, we are logged in and wait for 1 minute, then reload the page and check the network calls. Okay, let's go to network call. I am almost refreshing after 1 minute. Let me refresh the page. Okay, here I am getting error. And if you check the console, here it is showing error like response code 401. Okay, and if you check the network call, here it is failing. That is because, okay, here it is failing. That is because our token is expired. Okay, now we have to handle this token automatically. Refresh token API must be invoked. Okay, and it should be refresh our tokens. Okay, so for that, let's go to our Blazor WebAssembly code. Okay, so here our main logic will be written in the custom HTTP handler. Here we are intercepting request for adding the authorization header, right? So here only we are going to invoke the refresh token endpoint as well. Okay. So the first thing is I have to create a method here. Okay. So now what we will do, this is the response, right? Once the API call is bypassed, here it will be triggered and response will come. So here we are going to do some manipulation, okay, at this response. So here what I will do, where original Original response means actual request. This is, for suppose in our case, this weather forecast is actual request, right? So that actual request, okay. If original response dot status code, okay, HTTP status code, okay, is unauthorized. Okay, that means 401. At that time, I need to implement some logic here, like invoking the refresh token endpoint. If it is normal, okay, any other response or 200, then we simply return the original response. So now here our actual logic will be reside. Okay, now what I will do, I'm going to create a method. Okay, so private async. Okay, so this method also returns HTTP response only, okay, as the output. I'm naming my method like invoke refresh API call, okay. And this method should contains input parameter like our original response, okay. Here we are assigning to this variable, right, actual API response. That response also I should have a input parameter to this method, okay. So what I will do, So it is of type HTTP response message. Okay. And I also want this actual request, means here failed request is weather forecast, right? For example, so I want weather forecast request also in spite of it is failed, because I want to re-invoke it again. Okay, after calling the refresh token API. So what I will do, I am going to have HTTP request object, the previously failed request object. Okay, so here I will name it like original request. Okay, now here I have to call the my renew token API call. I named it like renew token, right? Refresh token endpoint call. So I want to invoke this API call, which is a HTTP post call. Okay. So that means I need to inject the HTTP client factory here. So let me inject the HTTP client factory here. So private read only I HTTP client factory. Okay. And let me inject it to the constructor. Okay. Fine. Fine. It is auto implemented. Okay. Now I have to call the post call. So what I will do, go to our login component, which is a post call, right? So let me copy the code from here to save some time. Okay. So here, these two line of code, first copy here. Okay. So get back to our custom HTTP handler. Okay. Here just we are creating the HTTP client, and here we want to invoke the refresh token endpoint. So get the name of our endpoint, that is renew token. Okay. So here give it here. Okay. And it should have payload. So what is our refresh token endpoint payload? Renew token request detail, right? So we need to create a new model in our uh, Blazor WebAssembly also. Actually, I should have created a class library so that I can share these common DTOs, but I did a mistake. Okay. So it is better to have a class library which can be shared between our API and UI. Because I didn't create it, now I have to create duplicate types. Okay, now go to view model, and here let me add a new view model. Okay, and request model VM. Okay, its payload must be matched to our API request model DTO. Okay, okay, now this is the payload I need to send here to this HTTP call. But if you observe how we are creating, we are serializing, and we are converting as a string content type. So copy these two line of code as well. Okay. So go to our custom HTTP handler and add those two line of code here. So here I need to create the model. That is nothing but our request model. So where renew token request. Okay. New renew token request object I have created, and I will pass it here. Okay. So we are ready with the API call, but payload we haven't created. I am passing dummy object. So here what I need user ID, okay, and the refresh token. We know, right? Refresh token is in browser local storage, right? We can access it just like how we are accessing the uh, access token. So copy this line of code, okay, add it here, okay, and name it like refresh token, okay, and here we should change the key. What is our key for refresh token? refresh token, refresh hyphen token. So give it here. Okay, now I am getting the refresh token. So now I can assign it here to this object. Now I also want user ID. So user ID we will have in our JWT token, right? So we are going to decrypt and get the user ID. So for that I am going to input the JWT token to this method. This method will be called here, right? So here we have already accessing the token. So I am passing it here. So now I need to decrypt this token and get my claims. If you recall, in the custom authentication provider handler, we have methods for decrypting our JWT token. So now we will move these two methods to a separate file, something like utility, okay? So that it can be shared. So let me create a new file, utility, okay? To this file, let's move these two methods and make this main method public, okay? Now first update in our custom auth provider here. Okay, here utility dot. Okay. So now I can use this method, utility method, for decrypting the clients. Okay. So go to our custom handler. Okay. And here where user clients equal to utility dot parse climb token method call. Okay. Now I got clients as well. Now I can assign the clients to this user ID. So user clients to list, okay, dot where dot type equal to sub. If you go to our API user service where we add the clients to our token, okay, here I am adding climb rate. Here sub means the user ID, okay, subject ID. So I can use the climb type sub. Okay, let's get back to our custom handler and compare it. Okay, then select the value that will gives the user authenticated user ID. Okay, convert dot to in 32 underscore value dot first dot default. Okay, so far so good. So we are ready with the payload. I am prepared the payload for my refresh token endpoint. Okay. So here, let me change the variable name response to refresh token response. Okay. Now here also I need to check what I need to check if refresh token response dot status code equal to 200. Okay. Here for me it's only matter when it is success. If you check in the above case, here it is only matter when it is unauthorized. Okay. So if it is success, then that means we are getting new pair of JWT token and the refresh token. So now what I will do, go to login component. Here what we are doing on login, successful login, we are getting the token response, right? Same response we will get here as well. So after getting, we are storing it to access token and refresh token, and we are also refreshing the our custom auth provider. So copy these line of code from here, okay, and add it here. Okay. Now here change like regenerated token. Okay, for our understanding. And here response is refresh token response. Okay. Now let's import the namespace. Okay. and here change the refresh token. Okay, now here we are restoring with our new JW token and access token into our browser storage. And here we need to inject the authenticate state provider. So private read only. What is the service I need to inject? Authentication state provider. Okay. So here authentication state provider. Okay. Import the namespace. Now here I need to inject the authentication state provider. Let's copy this variable. Okay, and assign it. Okay, and here change it to underscore auth state provider. Okay, so till now I am good. If refresh token endpoint also fails, our refresh token we passed in the payload is invalid token. If any other than 200, if we get any other, then we simply return original response. Means already here failed, right? For our case, weather forecast we are inputting, right? Again, if refresh token also failed, simply weather forecast error only we will directly return. Okay. Now after successfully regenerating our refresh token and access token, we have to invoke previously failed request. Okay. So for that, what I will do, here I am inputting original request, right? So original request. Okay, so I want to remove the expired JWT token header in the original request. So for that, let's copy these. Okay, let me add it here. Okay, and again duplicate it one more time, and here instead of add, first I need to remove. I need to remove the old one. Okay, old access token header. I can simply remove this, and again add the new refresh token. So that is regenerated tokens dot access. Okay. Now I need to invoke the API call. So for invoking the API call, we can use this base dot send async method. Okay. So I will call it here. So it will automatically re-invoke the already previously failed request. See how carefully we are handling. We are invoking the refresh token. After success of refresh token, we are again re-invoking the failed request. Okay. Now here request will be the original request, and we need to input the cancellation token also. Okay, so here cancellation token is there, right? Same cancellation token I can input here for this method as well. Okay, bit lengthy logic, right? But you can understand it slowly. Now I'm good. Now I can invoke this method here when I got unauthorized exception. So invoke refresh call. Okay, original response comma request will be our original request and a token and cancellation token. Okay, that's it. We are done with the refresh token endpoint logic. So let's again go here. One more thing I need to do. Whenever I am calling this refresh token, it should not go to into this loop. If it should not go to into this loop, I have to terminate here. So here I have to write logic. Should not interrupt the uh, refresh token endpoint also, just like registration and login. If you don't write this condition, your API call keeps on go to infinite loops. Okay. So, okay. So let's check the logic briefly. Injected HTTP client factory and authentication state provided as we required. And here we are checking if the HTTP call is a refresh token. Sorry, call should be renew token. I name it like renew tokens, right? Renew token. Okay. If the renew token, then normal flow. We no need to interrupt it. Okay. So next, for example, I am invoking weather forecast API. So here I am adding weather forecast authorization token because weather forecast is a secured endpoint. Okay. If the if the API call is successful, then no problem. We directly return. If we get unauthorized 401, then we are again bypassing the logic. So what we are doing here, we for to this method, actual response and request are inputting, means weather forecast response and weather forecast requests are inputting. I am just explaining like a weather forecast. For every secured API, this logic will execute. Okay. So first here what I am doing, I am getting refresh token and I am getting claims of my JW token because I need to prepare the refresh token payload. Okay, that is refresh token and the user ID. And here I am simply calling the refresh token endpoint. If it is successful, then I am again restoring the new JWT access token and refresh token into the browser local storage. And also I am refreshing the authentication state of our application. Okay, so up to here, our invoking refresh token endpoint is done. Next, here what I am doing, I want to invoke already failed weather forecast API. So I am inputting original request as input, right? So I am removing the expired authorization header. I am adding new authorization header with new access token and finally invoking the API. Okay, before testing the refresh token endpoint, I done two mistakes here. I forgot to return the final API call, re-invoking the original request, right? Original API call. I should return it here. Don't forget to return this one. And also in the user service, in the re-invoke token endpoint, here I am checking ID of the refresh token, not ID. It should be user ID. Okay. And one more mistake, this method should be written here. Okay. Totally I forgot written here and here as well. Okay, now let's test our refresh token endpoint. Okay, let me log in. Now let's wait for 1 minute. Okay, almost 1 minute is done. Let me refresh the page and we are getting data. If I check network calls, see here, weather forecast failed due to 401 unauthorized. Immediately renew token invoked API call and payload is our new access token and refresh token. Again, immediately our failed API is invoked with new authorization header. So all the things we handle inside of our custom delegate handler. Okay. So that's all about implementing refresh token in Blazor WebAssembly application. Next, we are going to do logout implementation. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to the channel and please don't forget to like and share the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.